What's up guys, XM360 here, and for those of you who follow my laser videos, the long wait is over. I finally broke down and got myself my own personal LPM. So LPM is short for laser power meter, and it basically allows you to measure the strength of your laser pointers. So I do a lot of laser pointer videos. I felt it was necessary to get myself a laser power meter. That way I could actually figure out the true power outputs of the lasers I review. So because this is my very first LPM and I really only wanted to figure out power outputs, I really didn't need to know too much else. I got one that's pretty simple. It's basically plug and use. It's the Laserbee A model made by J. Bauer Electronics. So the Laserbee A can read any laser between 0 and 2 watts or 0 and 2000 milliwatts. It can also read any laser between 300 to 1500 nanometers, so pretty much the entire spectrum of visible laser pointer colors. And I'm going to speed up this unboxing for you guys. The item comes from Canada. That's where J. Bauer Electronics is located, and I'll put links down below on where you can purchase it. It'll run you $140 plus shipping. The shipping time, I'm based in the US, so it took about a week to get. And the first thing I notice here is that it's very well packaged with lots of packing peanuts, and what I can see first here is the actual laser power meter itself. This is the part of the LPM that has all the buttons on it and the controls and the display, and then what you also get with it is the thermopile sensor head. I'll show you guys that in a moment, but this right here seems pretty good quality. It's made out of some type of plastic, and it seems pretty durable. It seems good quality. It has the two buttons on it, one for on and off and one for a zeroing, and I'll show you that later on. But I'm going to go back into the box and see what else I can show you guys here. The next thing I come to are some papers, which are probably going to be instruction manuals on how to set up your new LPM. But like I said, this LPM is very user-friendly and plug and play. It comes pre-assembled with everything, so you're basically just plugging in one part to another part and turning it on. These instructions will explain to you the do's and don'ts of using your LPM and how to not damage it and what not to touch, because there is a certain area you shouldn't touch on it because it's coded very specially. And the part that you shouldn't be touching is that thermopile sensor head, and I'm going to be pulling that out of here in a second. That is basically coated very specially. It's a heat sink, and the very small oils on your hands could throw off the reflection. I'm going to get into that a bit more later on in the video though. So you should definitely read through all these papers before you start using your LPM, because there's a lot of important information on there. So the next thing we're going to pull out of the box is the last part to this LPM, and that's the thermopile sensor head. So this is basically the thermopile sensor, the small little square that you're going to be pointing your laser beam at, and the heat sink that it is mounted on, and the cord that attaches to your laser power meter. So this is basically the most important and critical part of this whole setup, and you don't really want to touch it with any part of your hands, to be honest. You can touch the cord, but you want to hold it with plastic or wooden tools, because those don't really conduct heat. So I'm going to be extremely careful when opening this up not to scratch anything or make any contact with it with the scissors, and you guys are going to see me foolishly hold the heatsink up with my fingers here in a moment. I'm not actually touching the sensor, which is the most important part to never touch, but you really shouldn't touch the heatsink either, because the heat in your hands can transfer to it and cause very small errors. So don't do what I'm doing here. Try to hold this part of it with a wooden or plastic tool. You can hold the cord. That doesn't have any coating or any heat sensitive things, so you can touch the cord with your hands. So I'm going to show you guys one more time what that little square on the very front looks like, because that's the most important part. You never want to touch that with anything. If you need to clean it, you should only do it by gently blowing dry air over the surface. Never touch it with any chemicals, any cloths, your fingers. Even the small oils in your fingers will mess up the coating and the amount of light that's being reflected off that sensor, and they charge $35 for it to be recoated, so you don't want to have to go through that. Just never touch that sensor with anything at all, and also keep it in a very clean place when you store it. And try to avoid touching that heatsink with your fingers as well, the part that you guys just saw me holding up, which the sensor is mounted on. The heat from your hands could transfer to it and cause some inaccurate readings, at least until the heatsink cools down to room temperature again, so try to hold it only with plastic or wooden tools. So I'm now going to set this up, and I'm actually going to start using it so that we can give you guys some readings and show you how it works. It runs on a 9-volt battery, and the cord from the thermopile sensor plugs in right on the side here where this metal jack is. But before you guys even do that, you guys are going to need to put in a 9-volt battery. So the battery pack area is right back here, and I thought this was kind of funny. They put a little packing peanut inside the battery pack area, so definitely went the extra mile to package this item cautiously. So it takes the one 9-volt battery, and I know a lot of you don't have these sitting around, but you should go out and get a new one and use a fully charged one for the best results. Don't take one out of one of your smoke detectors. So it has the little positive and negative connection just like any other item that would use a 9-volt battery, and I'm probably going to skip forward a bit here because it did take me a little bit of time to actually get this battery attached. But once you have that battery in there and hooked up, you're just going to slide that cover back on and you're going to plug in the cable into the little side jack. So now that I have everything set up, I'm going to turn on the laser using this button to the left right here, just a little switch to turn it on, and you'll see the display turn on. So now that I have it set up, I'm not actually going to use it yet because you're supposed to allow it to acclimate to the room temperature of where you're going to be testing it for 15 to 60 minutes. So I'm going to let it acclimate a bit, let it get to the room temperature, and then I'm going to come back and actually try it out. So I waited the 60 minutes and I allowed it to acclimate to the room I'm going to be testing in, and I just turned it on just now. I didn't leave it on the entire time. Do not leave it on while it's acclimating. This is the little sensor head that you're going to be pointing the laser beam at, and you're going to want to point it at the very center of that square. So when you're aiming your beam and your dot at that little center of that square, you're going to want to have a beam diameter of somewhere between 3 millimeters to 12 millimeters. You do not want to focus in your laser to a perfect dot because you could end up damaging the coating. And the instructions say that the larger the beam the better, so you're going to want to be closer to that 12 millimeter number. So as you can see, I still have a number on here. It's still reading 6 milliwatts even after the acclimation period. That's why there's this little knob for zeroing it in. So if you acclimated it and it's still reading a number, you're just going to turn that knob to the left or the right until it reads 0. So I have a couple different lasers I'm going to test out here, and the first one is just your standard Laser 303 532 nanometer green laser pointer. Rated at 5 milliwatts, but pretty much everybody knows that's a lie because they're just trying to get around customs laws. Now I'm going to aim my laser beam at the center of that little square, and I'm going to hold it very steady, that way my laser's not moving around at all. And you should probably hold it on there for maybe 30 seconds to 90 seconds because it does require a stabilized reading time. It takes a little while to actually build up to the peak of how strong your laser is. So as you can see, that number is gradually rising, and once it's peaked out, you won't see it going up anymore, and it'll pretty much either stay at one point or it'll drop down a bit. So if it drops down and then it starts averaging out at one number, what you'll have is you'll have your average laser strength and you'll have a peak number, which is how high it got up to. And sometimes that peak number will also be the average laser strength. Now I'm going to fast forward through this so you guys don't have to watch the whole thing, but I got a reading of 31 milliwatts for this Laser 303, and it may have been stronger when I first got it, but it's probably diminished a bit because the lens might be scratched. It might just not be as strong as when I got it. Now after you've taken your reading, you should allow the LPM to drop all the way back down to 0 again, and if you wait maybe half an hour or an hour and it still doesn't drop back down to 0, then obviously just use that zero out tool to zero it manually, but you should allow it to zero out on its own. You shouldn't have to use the zero out tool if you've acclimated it correctly in the beginning. So next up I have another green 532 nanometer laser. It's a Wicked Laser Spider 3 Krypton, and this is, I believe, the lowest power model they have, maybe 500 milliwatts. I got it ages ago and I lost the safety label to it, so I'm not really sure. But I'm not expecting anywhere near 500 milliwatts because everybody really knows that the older versions of the Spider 3s were very under spec, meaning that they were labeled as 500 milliwatts but they only reached 300 or 400, and that combined with the fact that the lens on this one is very scratched, I just don't really have a lot of faith in it. I think it's lost a lot of its juice and it probably won't put anywhere near 500 milliwatts. I'll be lucky if I even get 300 out of it, but we're going to test it out right now and find out. Now one other little safety instruction is that they say in the instructions you should not mount your thermopile sensor in any type of enclosure because then the heat won't evenly dissipate and it'll kind of get trapped in there, so you gotta kind of keep it out in the open to a certain extent. And the instructions also say that there shouldn't be any breeze or flow of air in the room that you're testing it out in. Obviously never use it outdoors, but also don't use it in a room that has an open window because you can have that affect the temperature to a certain extent, and that will affect the readings that you're getting. So don't do it in a room that has any airflow. And in case you guys didn't pick up on this right away, there's a 0 followed by a decimal point and 3 more digits. This is measured in milliwatts, so the 0 represents how many watts there are, and then the 3 numbers after are the milliwatts. So on my reading right now, I'm getting somewhere in the hundreds of milliwatts, somewhere between 1 and 200 milliwatts. And then if that first number was 1, I would be in the 1 watt range. So right now I'm pretty much at 127 milliwatts, and that's accurate to 1 milliwatt. You can't get any decimal points past it, so the lowest reading you can get on this LPM is 1 milliwatt. So I'm going to kind of use this opportunity while this number is climbing to transition to my reviewing aspect of this LPM, and I was actually very pleased with the results I got. It was exactly what I was looking for in the budget I was looking for. I was looking for something in the $100 to $150 range, and I got that. I also was looking for something that could measure all my different laser pointer colors, all my different nanometers. The Laserbee A goes from 300 nanometers to 1500 nanometers, so that's the entire spectrum of visible laser pointer colors. And it was the power range I was looking for too. I mean, I probably will obtain some lasers in the near future that are a bit more than 2 watts, but as it stands right now, 2 watts is actually the highest laser pointer I have. And the only really con I can say about this laser, the only really negative thing to take away is that you have to kind of baby that sensor and be very careful with it. But for me, that's not even really that bad because it's a very sensitive instrument, and if you want to continue to get very accurate results, then you're going to have to be very careful with the most sensitive part of the instrument. So it's not even really a negative for me, it's just some information I wanted you guys to take away from this, is that thermopile sensor is key, so you don't really want to damage that. I also love the fact that it's a thermopile sensor because I don't have to use optical corrections for different nanometers or colors of lasers. I think the quality of the sensor, which is the piece on the left there with the display, is very nice, and I love the color of the display, and I just love how simple it is. It's basically the ultimate beginner's LPM, or just something for somebody who only really needs to know the milliwatts and doesn't really need too much more information, which is me. This is exactly what I was looking for, is just something to figure out the power of the laser pointers I review. And the fact that it comes pre-assembled, it just really makes it a very great, simple to use, good beginner's LPM, or just something for somebody who doesn't really need to do too much with it, or somebody who's just trying to figure out the power readings. You can get other options on this too for a little bit extra. The manufacturer, Jay Bowers, I've been in contact with him, and he has a lot of great options. He'll work with you if you need other things. There's other LPMs out there on the market that will connect to the computer and you can get more advanced readings. He can add that onto this for an extra price for you. He can custom build something for you if you had some special request. He offers recoding services. He can recalibrate your LPM if you accidentally mess it up. So I found the customer service very good. I found the instructions very nicely written and how many cautious things he tells you about, because he wants to keep your LPM in the best condition possible. All the extra services he offers for some extra fees to help you upgrade or help you fix your LPM. I just thought the customer service was very good as well. Overall, I was very pleased with this product. It's definitely going to help me out a lot with my laser reviews and figuring out the power ratings of my lasers. One last little safety thing to mention is that you should keep your LPM in a dust-free area when you're not using it. That way no dust will get on that sensor. Like I said, this LPM will cost you about $140 plus shipping from Canada. If you guys found this video helpful or informative in any way at all, hit that like button down below. And if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button for more amazing laser videos and LPM videos just like this one. So as always guys, thank you for watching from XM360.